Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Board Game Hot Takes, the podcast where we give our immediate reactions to the hottest board games just minutes after playing them. My name's Chris.
This is Tim.
And this is Adam.
And tonight we're going to be doing something just a little bit different. We're not going to talk about games at all, or at least not directly. We're going to talk about gaming tables. Why we buy them, are they worth it? What features do you want to focus on, and what do you want to avoid, or at least think twice about? We're also going to talk about our perfect game nights. But first, back to game tables. This is a topic that's been on my mind recently because of a pretty nice combination of circumstances. One is that my wife and son recently got a little bit more interested in gaming, so I've been doing more gaming than I have in the past. And the other is that I moved into a house that for the first time, I have enough space to put in a proper gaming table, and I've got sort of the family buy-in to do that as well, to have a game room. The downside is that there's a limited number of board game table makers out there, and they tend to be expensive, and they tend to have long production times. I've seen ones that are on the books, about 16 months out, which to me seems a little crazy, but that's the sort of the state of the world right now, especially these days in COVID with the lack of supplies and what have you.
Yeah, you could be moved on to a completely different hobby by the time you got that table.
No kidding. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what my options are, and as I see it and hear the choices for someone who's interested in finding a new place to play their games. One is just, who needs a game room? Just keep using the dining room table, right? Another is put a plain old table in the game room. You can get something cheap at Target, and that may be perfectly fine. Number 3 is to invest the time and money into getting a table from one of the many reputable board game table makers that are out there. And number 4, which is maybe the most interesting version, is to get a carpenter or a woodworker to make you a custom table. So you guys have both gone with option 3 and invested in getting a specialty game table. And I'm really interested to hear about your reactions to the tables. First, what made you guys decide to pull the trigger and get a game table in the first place? I mean, it's a pretty big expenditure.
Adam, you were the first of us to get a game table. Why don't you start?
Yeah, why did I get a game table? Well, for one thing, I needed a new dining room table. So I was looking at something that could be dual purpose in my case. So something that could function as kind of a showpiece dining room table, and also somewhere that I could throw the top off, have a cool secret game chamber underneath there, put all my board game mess out there, play a game, put the cover back on, kind of save it if I wanted to, and then pull the cover back off, have the game state exactly as I left it without having to pack it back up in the box and keep on playing. So that was kind of the appeal to me, and so that's kind of where I started looking, and those were some of my criteria for getting a game table.
So it sounds like you had some really practical reasons for wanting a game table like this.
And the impractical impulse of wanting to have a board game table because they look cool. That was also part of my decision too.
What about you, Tim?
I think that it was kind of what Adam was saying about being able to have a game set up and then use the table for something else, right? Like in the last house that I was in, I always played on my dining room table. And, especially when I play solo a bit, it's a pain in the butt to take a game out, spend 15, 20 minutes to get it set up, play one game, and then know you have to put it all away because your family's going to be eating dinner there later. So the idea of a game table in my last house was great because I was hoping that I could get something that I could just leave set up. But, otherwise you just use it practically for dining and for your normal table functions. Also, I like the idea of not having your cups directly on the gaming surface. Most gaming tables have some kind of cup holder. So I thought that was a nice feature that I could look at. The funny thing is that I moved into a new, larger house, and I have a dedicated game room as well. So that's when I finally ordered a game table. I moved in here, and I was like, okay, I'll order a game table. It's got the toppers to go over the top, except I never use them because it's a dedicated game table. So when I have a game set up there, I can just leave it set up for days or weeks at a time, and there's no reason to put them back on. So honestly, how important is a game table? Probably not that important, but I still think it's cool. It's fun to have.
Do you ever put your top on at all, or do you just leave it off all the time?
No, a couple times, like, for example, Jen and Danielle, wanted to have lunch. We had a game set up and we were going to have lunch, but the kids were all eating downstairs and we wanted some peace and quiet. So we went upstairs, we threw a couple of the toppers on and ate up there before getting into the game. So rare situations where I've done that. Once I had a big game set up to play solo, and then we had friends over on the weekend. So then I threw the topper on so we could set a different game up on top. It's probably been like twice in the last 8 months that I've actually used the topper for it.
Gotcha. Well, let's set our baseline here. Can you guys each talk a little bit about the specific table that you chose the features that you got with it, and what made you go with that particular model. Adam, what about you?
I'm pretty sure, I'm like 90% sure it was just boardgametables.com. And so I kind of did one of their custom. They have a custom option where you can build it yourself. You select the type of wood, the type of legs, the surface that you want, the surface size and shape. So again, boardgametables.com. I went a little nuts on it. It's just a rectangle. African mahogany wood, I think, was a big bulk of the expense with this table. And then I did the trestle legs. That was an upgrade from just your standard one leg at each corner of the table. And I went with a little bigger size. So 3.5 by 6.5 feet was the, and I'm not quite sure if that's the playing surface or the actual table surface. So around the whole thing, there is like a 2.5 inch border, and then it's sunken down for the playing surface. And then I also splurged and got some little cup holders that slide in and out, kind of like a drawer from a dresser or something like that. So they slide out, and then there's a metal base of the cup holder, and you can clink your glasses or cups or Coke or whatever you want to put in those. And I think that's about the bulk of the amenities that I included with mine. Not too flashy, no LEDs. What about you, Tim? What'd you get on yours?
Yeah, so I actually got my table from boardgametables.com also, but right about the time I was looking, they had just released, I think they had kickstarted it, but they had finished the Kickstarter and finished distributing their Kickstarter orders, so they were starting to mass produce them. But it's their Jasper table, and their Jasper is basically like their discount table, pre-configured. You don't have a lot of options with it, and it is definitely a discount table. The wood is high quality, the surface is high quality. It looks like a nice table. I do have some complaints about it. Number one is that it only came in one size, and that was a 3 foot by 5 foot. And that's, again, the playing surface on the table. Now, 3.5 foot is like optimal. My old dining room table that I used to use for gaming, you could fit any game on there. 2 people across from each other, their player boards, big board in the middle. Didn't matter what the game was. 3.5 foot wide is perfect. So with the 3 foot, it's a little tight. Now, I haven't had a game I can't fit on there, but if you had 5 people around this table, there are some games where you would be having to kind of push the player boards off to the side of the board. You couldn't have them on the opposite sides of the board. So a little bit lost on the space there, which I don't love about it. The other thing that I definitely gave up here was the cup holders, which it does have cup holders, but it's got these essentially little rails built into the underside of the edges of the table. And then the cup holders you can order, and I think I had to pay a little bit extra for the cup holders. So I got a couple wine glass holders and a couple standard cup holders. They just kind of slide into the table. That's not too bad. They work okay. They sit at kind of an angle, so they look a little bit cheap. Like they don't look like they're kind of built into the table. And then if you want to move them around, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt because you got to slide one off and then you got to move it and slide another one on. So it's not really elegant at all. But again, this was a discount table. It was a little under $1,000. So for an actual gaming table that is still a decent quality, I thought it was a good fit. Why did I go with the discount table? Because I'm frugal. I hate spending more money than I need to on something. So,
well, let me follow up on a couple of the things that you said, because one thing I noticed was, Adam, you said you have a 3.5 foot playing vault, and Tim, you've got the standard 3, which I from what I have seen, that seems to be the standard size, a 3 foot wide play vault, and 3.5 is an exception. That is abnormally large. And I think you can only get that from what I've seen in some of the custom-made tables. And that sounds like something that would make a huge amount of difference, especially if you like playing games that take up a lot of table space, like Terraforming Mars or what have you. Lots of games that take up a lot of space. But you also mentioned the cup holders. You didn't love the cup holders, and you also had some issues with the topper as well. Are there any of those that if you had to go back and do it over again, that you say, I'm willing to spend the extra money in order to get that fixed? Get something different?
Yeah, I didn't mention the topper right now, but I had mentioned it to you before. But I want to mention 2 things about the topper. Number one with this Jasper table is that there is a topper. It's 4 leaves, essentially, that go on top of the table. And they have little grooves and slots in them so that you can kind of slot them together. And then they have little rubber feet on them, or some kind of little felt feet, I think, to protect the top of the table. So in theory, it seems like it would work great. There's 2 problems with it. Number one, the topper slides really easily. With this particular table, when you kind of lean up against it, the leaf that you're sitting in front of will just kind of push off. So you always have this shifting on the table. So it doesn't work great when the topper's on top, especially to play another game on top of it. The other thing I found with them, and it may be the way that I'm storing it, I don't know if I'm not storing the wood properly, but it seems like the wood with the toppers on this thing, I think they're warping because they no longer fit together snugly. The way I'm storing them is because this is in my game room. They're basically sitting upright, kind of stored between two cabinets that I have there. Now, the room they're stored in is totally dry. I live in Arizona. It's always dry here, but it does get kind of warm. So it's not, when I'm not up there, it's like 88 degrees. So I don't have it really temperature controlled. So it may be something about the conditions I'm storing it in. Maybe I should have stored them flat. I don't know. But right now, I really can't even slot the table toppers together snugly anymore. They'll sit up there, but there's gonna be little gaps in between them because they don't fully fit. So that is definitely a frustration. Like, why even have the toppers if you can't use them on top of the table and if they don't fit together anymore? One other thing that I didn't love about it, and that's the playing surface. A lot of tables come with some kind of felt, or they come with neoprene maybe as a top, as kind of a top surface. This one came with, it almost feels like an indoor-outdoor rug type of surface. Not really. I don't know. It's some kind of fabric. I can't tell you what it is. It's not bad. It's a nice soft surface. It's easy to pick up cards and things like that. But the fibers on it are kind of stiff, and there's a lot of gaps in between them. So I can get, like, if I push a card across the table, the corner will get stuck in the fabric. Like, it's not like a traditional, just a soft felt. Now, I asked Board Game Tables when I had my table ordered, hey, do you have a different surface? Because I could see pictures of it and I wasn't that fond of it. That I could get, like a neoprene or whatever. They didn't answer at the time. I did just notice that their new version 2.0 of the Jasper comes with a neoprene surface, and they've replaced the one that I've got. So, that's good. I'm sure other people have complained as well. And they've created a replacement neoprene that you can put on my table, but it doesn't completely slot into the edges of the table. So it's going to have a tiny little millimeter gap around the outside. I think I might still order it because I don't love the playing surface there. That really covers all of my complaints about it.
One of the things that I've seen as an option in some of these tables is something called speed cloth, which is something I'm not familiar with, or I never heard that term before. What is that? Do you guys know?
I don't know. Do you know if that's what I have on mine, Tim?
I think it is, Adam. Yeah, when I was looking at them, I think it's the same material you've got. It's kind of a felt, right? Does it feel like a felt? It's kind of like a blackjack table material, isn't it?
To me, it feels almost like a soft canvas more than a felt.
Okay.
So it's a little stiffer than a felt, I would say. But so it's that surface. Everything glides across it nice and smoothly, and then there's just enough give in it so you could press a card down and the other side pops up for easy lifting off. If that sounds like speed cloth to you, then that's what I have.
Sure.
I think that's what it is. How do you like it, Adam? Like, have you played on any other surfaces? Are you happy with that surface?
I am happy with it. No complaints. I have neoprene mats too. So for some games like Eclipse, I'll throw the neoprene mat on top of that, and that works out fine. It doesn't slide around or anything. And it just adds that extra kind of cushion and nice little visibility that makes the game pop a little more. So playing a game directly on the speed cloth or a neoprene mat on top of it both work really nice.
So Tim, back to you about the question of would you actually spend the money to fix any of those problems?
Yeah, I think I would. I don't know that I'd go full custom, but it's a hard decision, right? Like, the problem is not only the cost to go custom or to go with one of the other kind of higher quality options. It's like you said, the wait time. The nice thing is with the Jasper, I did get it in about, 4 weeks or something like that, like 3 to 4 weeks. So would I want to wait 16 weeks for a table? No, I was moving into a new space. I needed a table to game on. Yeah, I wouldn't have waited 16 months to get a table. So I think I would have been willing to pay more for it if I could have gotten it in a reasonable amount of time, 2 to 3 months maybe. I think rather than wait that long, I think I'd rather just have the table I've got. It works. It's totally functional. I'm completely happy playing on it most of the time. And those little, quibbles I have with it are fairly minor.
So what about you, Adam? If you had to do it over again, are there things that you would spend the extra money to do differently?
I felt like I definitely overspent on mine. Or, you get what you pay for. So I'm totally happy with everything my table has, and I have no complaints. Chris, I'm totally content with everything on my table. I've seen some tables that have these extra shelves or ledges kind of thing. So I've thought about if I want that. But what I really like is the leaves on my topper. There's 2 big middle sections and there's 2 end sections. So you can kind of configure the table in a bunch of different ways. You can leave two of the toppers on and you have half table and half playing surface. Or you could leave the two end sections on and have that gigantic playing surface in the middle. Or you could take, all of them off and you have this huge 6.5-foot playing surface if you need it. So I like the configurability, and there's also a little edge that you can slot in underneath the leaves to block from like dice rolling under there, or a little cube or meeple rolling down there and getting lost, never being found again. So I can't think of anything I would upgrade about my table. I don't know, Tim, you have any complaints with my table? There's got to be something wrong with it.
No, I had no complaints. I did a couple times. I think I only played on it once, actually, and it was fine. It was great. With your table, did the toppers slide at all, or is there something that's holding them in place when they're sitting on top?
So there's my toppers, they bend over the edge of over the whole table. So they extend and they add, about half an inch on each side to the underlying kind of border and playing surface. And that goes on the kind of the head of the table and the foot or the bottom of the table too. Those overlap as well. So you get those end caps in there. They're not going to slide around anywhere. And they're so hefty too. They have a nice heft on them that creates enough friction to prevent them from sliding around also. So they're great.
Okay.
That the table topper is one of the things that I've just seen come up over and over and over again in the various reviews and discussions and the advertisements that I've seen. And for me, that wasn't a huge motivator because it's something that I'm going to be using as a dedicated game table. So kind of the way I look at it is I'll have it in the game room. The topper will be on so that I can, my son can do crafts or something like that on the tabletop while I can have a game on underneath it. But I'm not going to be eating dinner. It's not something I'm going to be constantly in use. But it's something they put a lot of thought into, and I've seen all kinds of solutions to it. It sounds like for Tim, there really wasn't that much of a solution in that particular table. Yours has what you just described, Adam. I've seen others such as, I forget the company, but there's one that has rubber bumpers that hold, go between the table to make it so that things won't spill through. One that I thought was particularly interesting was Wormwood gaming tables, which makes one of the more expensive game tables out there, beautiful but expensive. They use rare earth magnets to hold the table toppers together so that you don't have any risk of slippage. So there's lots of different solutions out there. And I don't know which one's the best, but it sounds like something that people have put a lot of thought into.
I know, Chris, you're probably not looking for this because it's a dedicated table, but I think it's worth mentioning. I think it's a pretty clever solution for people that do want to use this in their main dining space or something. And that's Game Toppers. You can check it out at Game Toppers LLC. But they basically have like a tabletop that is a full gaming table with the inlaid playing area and all the normal features of a game table, but it sits on top of your normal table. So I think that's a pretty clever solution for somebody that most of the week you just want to use a regular dining room table, but you have game night on Friday night, then you can get that set up and have a nice playing surface to play on. I think that's a pretty cool. Now you have to have a place to store it, so that's not great, but other than that, I think it's a decent solution.
So this is really kind of my my biggest question about game tables, because it's the first thing that both my wife and I thought about when we actually thought about what it would be like to play on a game table. And the primary feature is they all have a well. They all have a place where you have an edge around, and then you have a well that goes down, and then the table topper goes on top, and your game can be down in the well, and then you can have a game on top. You have a game on top if you want to, so you can either eat dinner or use it for arts and crafts or whatever else you want to do. But you have to reach over the edge and reach down into the well in order to play your game. And having never actually played on a game table before, I can't quite picture what that's going to feel like. But like my wife heard that and she thought, well, that sounds horrible. Why would I ever want to do that? So I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about whether that affects your gaming experience. Is that something that you like, dislike, don't even notice? How do you feel about that?
I'll jump in here. I think it's cool, Chris. I think it's like I give that poker table feel, or like I'm in Vegas at the casino, which I never do, but I feel like a cool guy. Like I got some connections, you know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna put down I'm a big spender, and I get the free suite up on the top. I feel like that when I'm leaning in on this thing, and that's the feel I get from it. And then what else? It blocks dice and blocks meeples from rolling off, and it captures everything up there too. So I think it's cool. Is it necessary? I don't know. Yeah, that's why I got a game table. I wanted a well, man. That's freaking cool. So that's my take on it. What about you, Tim?
I was kind of worried about that myself because I had never played on a game table before getting my own. I was worried that it would be uncomfortable, that you'd feel like you were leaning in, that you'd have to reach in. Honestly, when you're sitting there playing, you don't even notice it. it really doesn't have a negative impact at all. I think, the 3 inches or however deep it is, 3-4 inches, it just doesn't have any impact on your actual ability to reach in and touch anything. So, and I haven't heard any complaints about that from my other friends that have played on it. So I don't think you have to worry about it. It seems like it'll be awkward, but it's not at all. And Adam's right. I mean, Vegas has been doing this for years. Lean over the blackjack table with a little lip on it, and the poker table, and it all works fine. So I do think it's really nice, though. I've not dropped a component off the table since I've been playing it. And I can't tell you how many times on my old dining room table that I had Terraforming Mars cubes spilled across the room, or dice that I couldn't find after I rolled it. So it does contain things. It doesn't seem like it should be that big of a deal. We're adults. We should be able to handle our bits and pieces without, splaying them everywhere. But for some reason, it just doesn't happen. You just drop stuff. And so the gaming table does stop that from happening. It keeps things contained. And I think it's a nice feature.
Chris, tell me about this wellophobia that you have. What's you're worried your elbow's going to slip in? You're going to be knocking funny bones, or what's going on in your head over there?
I don't know. Maybe it is just a phobia. I mean, I'm picturing, a little narrow ridge, and you're leaning on there. It's a little bit uncomfortable, and you're having to reach way down into this thing to get your pieces. But like Tim said, we partake in a hobby that's got a lot of little pieces, and we roll things. So, it's got to be, beneficial to have that kind of a well. And again, I've never played on one, so I don't know. Now, personally, the table that I've been most interested in, which to name drop, it's a Bandpass Design, the Dresden table. And the way that they've handled that issue, at least it seems to me like a way to handle that issue, is that it has a very wide edge. In fact, it's so wide that the cup holders are built into the edge that goes around the table. And that to me seemed like a very comfortable way to handle that.
Yeah, I'm looking at that table now, Chris. And again, I haven't even had a problem at all, even though the edge is not as big on mine. But I do like what they're doing here. I like that the cup holders are built right into the edge there. I think that looks really good.
Yeah, if you're going to get down to details here, you got there's that wide edge style of table, which I think has a cool look to it, a really nice look. And there's a skinnier edge. Mine maybe is like 2.5 inches or something like that. I think yours is similar, Tim. And mine, I really like mine. Mine has a rounded kind of, bevel, so there's no corners or anything. It's really nice on the skin, has a smooth touch. And again, maybe that's getting a little too into it, but it's something you notice when you're playing, leaning in, you got your forearms on this thing. It's just a nice feel and a nice aesthetic to it. And I think yours, Tim, had a little bit sharper edges, and it was no big deal, but it was noticeable once I went back to mine.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Adam. And I was just thinking about that because I'm sitting actually where I record this podcast. I'm sitting at what used to be my old dining room table, and it's now my podcast table. And it also has kind of sharp edges on it. So I don't think I notice it on mine as much. But as I'm sitting here leaning in on it, I agree. It's not super comfortable. So that is probably something that you would notice on my cheap ass table compared to your guys, upscaled, nice fancy tables.
Such a small, snobby detail to notice and point out. I feel like we're really, picking at straws, or I don't know what the term is, but I feel like we're getting way into it. But I don't know, if you're going to go in on a board game table that you're going to spend time at, and aesthetic is important to you, it's something you want to think about.
Yeah, and don't say you guys. I don't even have a game table yet. I'm playing on a card table or my dining room table.
So, Chris, you said that you're kind of leaning towards this one. What's going to stop you? What are you still assessing at this point? What would stop you from buying it today versus continuing to research?
So in this case, it's really because I'm thinking back to the 4 options I gave before, and I don't really want to go with a cheap table from Target. I mean, I feel like I'm at the point where I'm ready to invest in this a little bit, and I'm done playing on the dining room table. So it really came down to option 3, which is buy yourself a nice table, or 4, get someone to build you one. And it just happens that someone tipped me on to a local woodworker, carpenter here in the Portland area.
Oh, nice.
And said, give him a call, see what he has to say. And I spoke to him, and his short answer was, you're going to be better off going with a company that's already gone through all the design, has put all the thought into this, and, because I'm going to be starting from scratch. But let me put some numbers together for you, and I'll come up with a proposal, and, then we can work, with whatever you want to do. I haven't gotten that number yet, so I have no idea how long it's going to take him to do it. He did say it would be a matter of a few months rather than a year and a half, and I have no idea at this point what the price is going to be. So those are obviously going to be the 2 really significant factors in that. But I kind of like the idea of being able to work with someone to, and this is not even just here pick from a list of options, but the world is your oyster. He can do anything you want to do. You probably end up paying for it. And, you also are going to be dealing with someone who hasn't made a living out of making game tables. So, you're going to have to do a little bit of sort of hand holding on this. And, for someone who's not in the hobby, doesn't know exactly what they're looking for, what they're trying to accomplish with these, the various divots and things you put your little pieces in. So, but I'm curious to kind of play that out and see. Now, in reality, if it turns out that the price is not right, or the timeline isn't going to be right, I may end up going with that table, the Bandpass Dresden. But that actually brings you back to one of the things that you guys had both mentioned, and it was the cup holders. And it seems to me that there's a few different options that I've seen that sort of come up over and over again. One of them is I've seen some tables have no cup holders whatsoever, but really that seems to be the outlier. Gamers like to drink, gamers want cup holders. And Tim, you've got the slide-in ones that you take on, take off. Adam, you've got the ones that pull in and out like drawers. I've seen another variation. Again, Wormwood seems to have a lot of fairly innovative things going on here. They have ones that you can attach, detach again with magnets that hold on your cup holder. And that seems like a sort of a mix between what you guys are talking about. And then there's the Bandpass version, which is you have a wide lip that has the cup holders built right into the table. Looking at that and having experienced both of the tables that you guys own, what do you think is in your opinion, the optimal way to put a cup holder into a table?
Well, there's an interesting thing here because I'm looking at this table and I'm thinking about Adam's table. And the one thing that you guys don't have is that you don't have configurability once the table's there. Like this table looks like one cup holder for each chair around the table essentially. And it's a traditional kind of, car size cup holder. So you can't put a coffee mug on there. You can't put a glass of wine in there would be my guess. Or it's not going to be very stable if you do. So yeah, if you want a traditional glass, and you can put most things in a traditional glass if you need to, it's great. I do really like the cup holders that I've got. One is that if I've got the wine glass holders, which can slide in and out. So they just have basically a space to kind of slide the stem in there. My wife's a wine drinker. So, she likes drinking out of a traditional stemmed glass of wine, and the normal cup holders would never work for that. So it's kind of nice. I give her that option. Now, when I've been up there with the cup of coffee, that doesn't really work very well. So, you have to use a non-traditional coffee cup. That's not a big deal. You can buy some coffee cups that don't have, little handles on them if you want to fit them in there. I like that I can move them around, and Danielle can sit on one side of the table and have a glass of wine, and then next time she can sit on the other side, and we just move the cup holder over there that holds the wine glass. So, you got some flexibility there. I think it's nice, but I don't know that it counters the negatives of my cup holders. Number one is they get in the way sometimes. Got a few cup holders on each side, and so sometimes I'll sit down to play a solo game. I want to be in the middle of the table, so I got to take all the cup holders off that are right where I want to sit and move them off to the side somewhere. It's a little bit of a hassle. It doesn't look as nice. They're always going to be sitting there hanging off the table versus like this one, it's hidden under the table topper when you aren't using it, and it's perfectly available when you need to. With Adams, you push it in, you don't see it when you're not using it, and it's never in your way. So I think I would prefer one of those two options over what I've got, but I do like that it got a little bit of flexibility with the configuration.
Yeah, that's a really good point. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with my configuration of my table. So mine has, for sitting at the head or the foot, you reach down under the right hand or left hand side, you can slide out 2 cup holders. And then if you're sitting on the other side of the table, the long sides of the table, in the middle, there's a double cup holder. So if you're sitting at, say, the long side on the right-hand side, you could use that head table if you're a righty, or the foot of the table, whichever side you're looking at from your perspective. So you could pull that one out. Boom, it's on the side. It's not in your way. Or if you want that middle one. And then if there's another guy at the head on the other side. So it's pretty configurable. But like you said, Tim, it's fixed. It's in a fixed position. I can't slide that around. All I have is the in-out cup holder, not the continuous. I got the discrete method, not the continuous like yours has. So I enjoy it, but there's pluses and minuses. Depends on what you're going for.
So here's the question. Do you guys use your cup holders?
Yeah, all the time. Always. In fact, Chris, tell me the first time when you get this table, whatever table you get, how long does it take before somebody puts their dang cup right in the middle of the felt, right next to the board, and you got to correct them? on it because for some reason my wife just loves to put her cup, even though there's cup holders around, she loves to put the cup in the middle. But then I'm like, Danielle, you can't put that there. Then she she moves it and it's good. She sticks with it for the rest of the session.
It's like a 6x3 coaster.
If you look at that Bandpass one, though, it has those big, shiny, soul holding cup holders right on top. You see those things, you're like, heck yeah, I want to put my cup right in there.
Yeah.
So those are kind of spectacular looking on that. The Dresden one that you mentioned there, Chris. Hard to miss those when they're just right out there in front of you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of nice features to that. And one of the things that is on that table, and I wanted to ask you guys about, it has these built-in kind of divots. I don't know what better word for them, but they're little pieces holders. So like your meeples or your resources or what have you that are built right into the side. And I know that that's another one of those things where there's all kinds of different variations that tables have. Some have absolutely no solution to that. Some have something like what Bandpass has where it's built in. And there's others, like I think recently Geek and Son did a Kickstarter for a highly configurable table that had, it was a crazy number of different variations you could have on there, like built-in or removable dice towers and card holders, and they had, anything you might want for gaming, you could get built into that table or as an add-on to that table. And so for you guys, do you have anything in your tables that handles those kind of situations? Like, where do you put your extra pieces or anything like that? Or do you just lay them all in the vault?
Yeah, I'll speak. I do not have anything like that, and I wish I did. Again, it's not super important, but it is really easy that when you just have all your components out on the table and the supply of resources, and inevitably somebody accidentally reaches over and grabs something out of the supply when they meant to grab something off their own set of resources. So I like the idea of it. I've never used one that has these little wells. One thing I was curious about though is I see this has some like little thin wells for your components. What are the really deep wells for? Do you have an idea why they have those super deep wells on there?
That's a good question. I think I know what you're talking about, but I'd have to go back and look. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, there's some kind of deeper rectangular wells. I saw what you're talking about, Tim. I don't know. You can hide all your...
I guess it could be just for components as well or something like that. But I'm not sure that I would want those super deep wells because then you're like digging in for components out of there. So I'm not exactly sure what the intent is for those. But I like the shallow wells that they've got kind of in between those.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about, any game where you're playing with resources where you have, 7 or 8 little tokens that you have to use for wingspan, your food. You put in something like that where it's just easy to keep it in one spot without it flying all over the place.
I'm going to go with the diplomatic answer here. And, do I prefer the wells or accessories or not? It depends. It depends on the situation that you're going for. Again, in my situation, I was going for a kind of a dining room table. So there's nothing, you look at it and you're just like, oh, that's a dining table. It's nice. It's simple. It's kind of clean when you look at it. You pull the toppers off. It still, again, has that clean, elegant, smooth look to it. There's no dimples, nothing like that. And the big play surface, I figured that'd be big enough to put all the stuff right there on the surface. So I like mine. But that, again, I wanted it to double as a showpiece table. Whereas you have if you're going to get something with divots and exposed edges and card holder looking things that are immediate on first sight, you probably want something like that in a dedicated game room. If you have your friends dining over, you're probably not going to need to have like their business cards in this little divot or some dice with maybe you have some Scrabble tiles with their names on it or something cute like that lined up. But if you want a dedicated game table, then I say go for the divots and the extensions and stuff that might not be unconfigurable.
Okay, so I just read what those deep wells are for. Those are like dice bins, so that when you roll your dice, you can roll them there, and they don't scatter all over the table. And I love it. Yeah, now you need to do that. Like that. That's exactly. I would absolutely want that because there have been a lot of games where I was like, man, I wish I had a dice, so that when you chuck your dice, they don't roll all over the table. And on each side of the table, there's a dice well to drop your dice in, and it's lined with the same material that the bottom of the table is.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm embarrassed to say that the number of hours that I've spent looking at this table, and I didn't even realize that.
And it does have the little card slots too, it looks like, Chris, which is, I think, a nice feature where you could put your card. Adam, did you say yours does have those little card slots as well?
No card slots.
So I like the features here, Chris. I think for most games, you're going to make some use out of, one or more of those features for almost any game. And they're all an added bonus, and I don't see a big reason why you wouldn't want them. They're not going to. I don't think they're going to get in the way necessarily. So, seems like some really nice features to me.
This kind of goes back to the point about the vault, And you guys have convinced me. I believe now that it is not a big deal playing with a vault. But at the same time, obviously there's still going to be some people who have a concern about that. And I have actually seen a couple of different solutions to that issue. And one of them is, well, three, I guess, actually, considering one solution is there's no solution. You just deal with it.
Put the topper on top. Don't get a board
game table. Put the topper on top, right, yeah. Yeah, just get that cheap table from Target.
There you go.
Another one is, and this is, again, the Bandpass one that I'm looking at, where you can put these little stoppers in, lift your table up and set it down on top, so you've got maybe, a half inch or something like that of space between the table at the top of the table and the bottom, and it's still easy enough to raise and lower it so you don't have to take your game off. Maybe useful, maybe not, I'm not sure. And then of course again, I keep kind of name dropping these guys, but Wormwood has this very expensive but really impressive feature where it actually has a crank, where you can crank the table, it raises the bottom up and it lowers the bottom down, so you can get the full benefit of the well and putting the table topper on, and at the same time, you don't have to mess with your game at all. You're lowering it on like a platform, and you're going to pay for it. But that seems like a great solution. But that's something that I've always found kind of really, really interesting.
I really don't think that you need a game elevator built into your game table. I think that
if money is no object, I don't know.
If money is no object, if it's a showpiece, board game.
But one feature that I have to admit, this is one of my sort of dream features that I have absolutely no idea if this is practical or if it would be useful or enjoyable in any way.
The LEDs
is lights. The LEDs that in some companies make tables where you have the LEDs that go around the inside and a completely configurable remote control the color of the lights, or just play white lights, what have you. What's your reaction to that? Useful? Ridiculous? What do you think?
I don't think they're useful at all. I've thought about that. Like it's a cool effect, I guess. And if you're doing something like maybe thematic and you wanted to give like a little red glow to show that you're, in a volcano, or maybe you could get a little thematic effect out of it. But I don't think it's going to add to the visibility of the game. Like it's not like lighting that's going to help you see the game in any way. LEDs can also be a little bit blinding, so you got to sit there and stare at a light the whole time you're playing. I don't think that that's a good feature personally. What do you think, Adam?
Chris, listen to me. Tim is totally wrong. He has no idea what he's talking about. You need to get these LEDs. You need to have them in there. You need to have emotion lights. When you play that guy in Blood Rage, you come in there and kick my ass, you're going to be able to like flick those on like thunder and lightning them in my face.
I can picture that. You're in the middle of a pitched battle and you turn on the red lights. Man, okay, you convinced me, Adam.
Yeah, do it. No, so I don't have them on mine. They're totally unnecessary. They look cool. Why not get them if you're even thinking about them? Why not just go for it? That seems kind of cool to me.
Well, let me go back to that.
They're cheesy. That's why you wouldn't get them.
Well, and not so much they're cheesy, because I don't care about cheesy. I'm good with cheesy. They're expensive. The times that I've seen that as an option, and I think this might have been one of the options you could have chosen on your table, Adam, but I think it was like $500 or $600. If somebody said, throw down $500-$600 to put lights in your table right now, do you think you'd do it?
No, there's no way I could give into that.
Okay. My whole table costs barely more than that. Hey, so if you really want lights, Chris, you can get a $20 strip of LED lights with a little remote control. You just put it on the inside of the table. It's got a little battery pack. I'm sure you can drill a little hole on the inside of the table and hide it underneath or something. And $20, you got LED lights in there. So
$20 set of LED lights is what you got instead of a $500 set of LED lights.
Those little fairy lights, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm actually glad to hear you guys say that, because it's something that it seemed really cool, and I may have found myself spending a whole bunch of money on, but you guys have talked me out of it. It's not something I think that I need to do, and it probably would end up being a waste of money. Get some cool room lighting instead, and I think that's probably a smart.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what you need. That's what you need.
So, any other things you guys want to add about your game tables, or things that folks ought to consider when they're buying one? Things you want to avoid? Things you want to make sure you get? What do you think? Anything else?
Yeah, a game table is a complete luxury. If you don't have a game table, don't feel bad about it. Play your games on your regular table. You're going to be just fine. Games don't change playing on a game table. It's a fun accessory to have. If you've got the extra money to spend on it and you want some of these little features, great. Don't stress about it if you can't get one. That's my final thought on it. I really wanted a game table because it seemed like you need to have one in a game room. I've got one now. I don't think I noticed it that much from not having a game table. So, I'm fine that I've got it. I'm glad that I've got it, but it's not necessary.
Totally agree, Tim. Totally unnecessary. Again, mine was a kind of a big reward to myself. It was something I knew I wanted to put some effort into and have something nice for a very long time and be able to keep it, I don't know, pass it down, pass tables. Do people pass tables down in their family's name?
Sure.
Anyway, I hope to see my great-grandkids someday using great-granddaddy's old game table and telling stories about it. But totally unnecessary. Games work just fine without a board game table.
Yeah, I don't have the game table, so I can't really speak from a position of authority on this one. But I will say this, that if I had my game room and I just plopped in a $200, $300 table from Cost Plus World Market, I would enjoy my games probably just as much as I would if I was playing on a $5,000 table or a $10,000 Wormwood table with the rare earth magnet toppers. So it's
removable crank.
Yeah, the removable crank. No, it's definitely a luxury, but one that some of us are willing to put out a little bit of cash for, and if we're willing to, then it may be a fun thing to have, but otherwise, nothing that should stop you from enjoying your favorite game.
Yeah, and Chris, I had not seen this Band Pass Dresden table, but it looks like a nice table, and it looks like a good value. I think if this had been available when I was looking for tables, I probably would have gone a little bit more expensive and gone with this, because it seems like comparative to the quality, it's a significant step up it's a little bit more money, but it seems like a good value there. So it looks nice. Is this one, how long is it going to take for you to get this table?
That one surprisingly had a pretty short timeline. It was not a cheap table, but it was one that I think you could get in a few months because they really don't offer any options. I think there's a wood option, but that's basically it. And there's a size option. There's 3 different sizes you can get. The largest one I think is called like the war table or something like that, which is great. But they don't really offer options, so it's essentially, as I understand it, kind of a assembly line kind of scenario where they're able to kick out tables without having to do a lot of customization. So it's only a few months, which is reasonably good.
Okay, and actually I'm looking at it. So it starts at a reasonable price, but it does get expensive as you start to add in some of the features, like the dining top is pretty expensive on it and things like that. So, but it looks like a nice table. So. If you get it, I'd love to play on it sometime.
Yeah, well, you might get your chance. Well, thank you guys for the feedback on that. That actually really is helpful to me. This conversation really helped me make up my mind on some of the things that I'm thinking about in terms of this table. In particular, I'm not getting LED lights, or if I do get LED lights, it's going to be the $15 strip of fairy lights from Cost Plus, and I'm going to dedicate that to Tim.
You're not going to go with the $700 Neurolinked LED lights so people know what you're thinking in the form of beautiful color as you're playing the game.
Oh, do they have a Neuralink?
That's the latest option.
I haven't seen that. If they have that's an option I may go for. So let's talk about the perfect game night. How about that?
Let's do that right after this. All right, welcome back, guys. So I got this idea for this topic from another podcast that's fairly new, and they started out pretty active. I think the guy who runs this, that hosts this podcast, runs a game store. And when they were shut down due to COVID, he had some time to do something else, and he started up this podcast, and I just love the idea of it. From the first episode, I heard this topic and I wanted to be on the show. I wanted to think up the perfect game night and talk about it. So since I didn't get invited on the show, I'm going to talk about it with you guys tonight, and I want to hear your thoughts as well.
I'm happy to be your backup, Tim. Great.
Yeah, seriously. What was the podcast? Can you tell us, or is that a secret?
Yeah. So the podcast is Last Game Night on Earth. And as I mentioned, I don't think they're super active now. He's done, a dozen episodes or something like that. Maybe they're still doing more, but it seems like it's slowed down a little bit. But check it out. It's fun topic. And basically, he brings a guest on and then asks them some questions about their ideal game night. And that's what I'm going to do with you guys tonight. So we're going to talk about the games you want to play on that game night. We're going to talk about who's there with you, what kind of music are you listening to, what's the atmosphere like, where are you playing, what kind of food and snacks do you have. So what's a great game night for you, and anything else that you think makes a great game night. Let's get started. I'm going to start with Chris here, because I know his ideal game night is...
Can you start with Adam on this one? I need a break from talking for a minute.
I'm going to start with Adam here. And I, we've already talked about how you have to have a game table for your perfect game night. No, that's not true. Adam, so let's start with, for your perfect game night, where are you playing? Where are you having your game night in the ideal situation?
My ideal situation, this game night is going to be in a room with a glass wall looking out somewhere high up. I imagine the Pacific Northwest. I want to say somewhere cool though. I don't know if that's the Pacific Northwest anymore, but somewhere high up in a yeah. Well, it's been like 100 friggin' whatever degrees up there, so it's been that's high up overlooking the ocean, some rocky, rugged, wild coast, big waves crashing in, but just a high overlook. Green hills surrounding me, maybe some raindrops clacking on these windows as I'm looking down, sunsets coming in, going into nighttime, getting ready. Just all my best friends over the years that I've known that have any interest in hanging out, getting together, spending time together, and playing games. That's who I want. So maybe, I don't know, maybe 3-4 tables with 4 or 5 people at each table. Everybody plays the game, has fun. And then you switch it up, do it again, switch it up, do it again one more time. So you get some time with all your great friends from past, from present, new friends, meeting old friends. Does the game matter? Yeah, of course it matters. I want Ennis out there.
I'm gonna set one restriction on you, and that's interesting to hear you say that you want a whole bunch of tables going at the same time. That's awesome. You only get 3 games for that game night. That means that, yeah, you're going to be able to switch it up with people, but you're probably not going to play with everybody, if you're only doing 3 games. Or maybe you can. Maybe you got a whole bunch of people and you've got a game that you can play with everybody. But why don't we jump into that? So we've heard about where you want to play. We heard about who you want to play with, all your friends from over the years that you love seeing, that you love hanging out with. What's your first game for game night? What do you start with?
Oh man, if I'm going to be selfish here, first game for game night, I'm going to say Inish right now. Why? I don't know. I have no good reason. I haven't set this up too well. I haven't picked an appetizer, main course, and a dessert. But I think Innis is a bit of an appetizer.
We'll get to
it can run. They say it can run long. I've never had it run long. You check out the cards, draft them up, lay out the tile, build this little map. It's interactive. Everybody's negotiating. There's going to be who's going to go for who. Are you going to help me out here and kind of take down Chris so he doesn't win? And then, we won't fight each other. Let's move in here that way, blah, blah, blah. So you get some people talking, interactions going, maybe some... Wait, am I allowed to talk about drinks right now, or are we saving that for later too?
No, jump right in, man. What are you drinking while you're playing this? While you're playing Innis?
So if we're gonna play Innis, this ideal game night happens to be in Ireland, overlooking the coast. So switch out Pacific Northwest with Ireland, right? Why not? Then maybe we've got some Guinness.
You prepped as always.
We've got some Guinness, or whatever the local brewery is. Doesn't have to be Guinness, and then maybe some Irish cream as well.
Guinness with Innis.
Guinness with Innis. Why not? So that's my opener.
All right, sounds good. Well, before we jump into the second game, what do you have out for snacks? What are people snacking on here? You can just have different snacks for each of the games, or you can have a spread for the whole night. So what do you see for your ideal game night?
So continuing with the Innis theme, I was in Dublin one time because I'm a world traveler, and I had a rack of lamb on mashed potatoes and gravy. So I know that's gonna offend the non-meat eaters out there. Sorry, Tim. But this thing, was it a rack of lamb, or was it like a lamb shank? It was just amazing. It was downstairs in some little restaurant in Dublin. It was a kind of little hideout. We had some local friends with us, so we got the good thing. Potatoes, great mashed potatoes, gravy. I think a little bit of, mint. What do they serve with lamb? A little bit of mint. Oh, and this thing was
mint jelly.
I don't know if it was mint jelly, but
mint jelly. It's like the food that you only eat with one other thing. I mean, there's companies that actually make a living making mint jelly, but you only eat it with lamb chops. That's the only thing in the world
right.
you. But that's
right.
Sorry, neither here nor there.
No. So it was something like that. Fresh herbs, maybe some mint jelly, but at least some mint was involved somehow. So that's at least one of the menu items at my game night there.
All right. So while you're playing Innis now, do you have do you have a themed music going on here, or do you have a playlist that just runs through the night? Tell me about your music choice as you're starting out your game night here.
Yeah, so I don't want anything too crazy. I don't want any, I think metal is going to be off limits. Anything like that's going to make people go crazy. The craziness is going to be thinking about strategy in games and interacting with other people there. So just kind of mellow music in the background, not overwhelming, something that's not going to get in the way. That's my only restrictions on music.
All right, cool. We've finished the game of Innis, had our lamb chops. I assume the cards are sleeved in Innis because everyone's got their mashed potato fingers all over the components at this point. And you've had your Guinness. So what's the second game for game night?
All right, second game for game night. Man, right now I am just in love with Dune Imperium. The tenseness, right? So everyone's had their little warm up with Innis, which could be a little bit tense. But Dune Imperium, just the tightness of it, that race to 10 points every time, it's just so tense. So people have settled in and they're really focusing, or maybe not focusing if they've had a few too many Guinnesses. Guinai. Anyway, Dune Imperium is my number 2 game, I think, as kind of the entree.
All right, sounds good. And are the drinks and snacks changing up here, or are we just having lamb chops and Guinness throughout the night?
Man, if I had time to think, I'd think of some kind of spice analogy. Nothing kind of...
I'm just trying to think of the game table that Adam has to be playing on to be having his lamb chops and rack of lamb and mashed potatoes and playing the game at the same time. But I want to see that.
Well, there's a whole other dedicated table and private chefs and stuff making all the gravy and lamb chops. So that's back at the kitchen.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, final game of the night. You've had 2 epic, tense, in your face games. Are we going to continue it on with the third one, or you going to change it up?
So at this point, it's kind of a read the crowd situation. If someone feels like they want their revenge because of what happened in Dune Imperium, then maybe we'll go Kemet Blood and Sand. We'll up it one more and just go pure fight, because that's all that game is. There's a little bit of buying this, and you're buying stuff in order to get monsters so you can fight harder. That's the whole point of this game. So people want to go there and get rowdy and end the night on a more intense climax, then we're going Kemet Blood and Sand, because that's a rowdy game. If we want to mellow it out, I don't know. I'll have to come back to that one. I'm about to think of a mellow dessert while I give Chris some time to express his thoughts on an ideal board game night.
Mellow dessert game.
Before Chris jumps in, though, Adam, is there anything else at all that makes the ideal game night for you? Aside from just having your friends, some fun games, a beautiful location, good food and drinks, anything else that you care about that you're going into a game night and you feel it's going to make it a better situation for you?
Man, I'm going to say I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I know you guys are going to come up with something amazing. I'm going to realize how shallow I am again about life in general. When you guys come up with all this deep, amazing stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So expect one of those later on when I hear your guys' answers.
Okay, cool. And just expect that I've spent way too much time thinking about this. So
I'm looking forward to it.
I didn't give you guys as much time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I gave the most run-of-the-mill, shallow answer I could. I'm excited to hear your guys' thoughts.
All right. So, Chris, let's jump in here. Okay, starting out, I'll start you out easy here. Location. Where are we playing? Or maybe I'm not there. Not where are we playing? Where are you playing game night?
Well,
I want to be in Ireland with Adam, so yours has to be scheduled on a different night.
Yeah, we'll work schedules out. We'll get all this worked out. Before I jump into that, though, let me just say I was actually really, really interested to hear what you guys had to say. And one thing that I was afraid of was we're all going to say the same thing. We're all going to talk about the right music and the right da-da-da. And already, just from hearing what Adam said, my answers are so different, I think, or at least they feel different to me. So it's really interesting to hear that. Now, one answer that's not actually different from what Adam said is the location. I think, a beautiful location, ideally. I mean, I actually, as you were describing that, up until you said the thing about over the coast, I don't have that. But my game room here in Portland, now that I've moved, we actually do have a room with a wall of windows looking out on a river, and so that's pretty nice. But something like that, just a room that is pleasant. In reality, I'm not even sure the room is that important, because in my opinion, and this is just an opinion, but gaming is done better at night, because you have that it's almost like Vegas. You've got the penumbra of light, over the game table. You're hunched over it, and it's very mood heavy and thematic, and the lighting matters and all these things. You're probably not even looking out the window. You're looking at the game table, and you're feeling it, and you're there, and it's 100% of your attention is focused directly on the game and the things that are happening around that game. So I'm not even sure how important the location is, but if I had to pick a location, obviously it would be a place that has, something really pleasant going on, something nice to look out the window, that kind of thing.
All right, so we're in this this nice location. Don't care where it is because we're just focused on the game. What are you serving, Chris? I know you're a foodie and you're into drinks. So what are you serving? What kind of snacks do we have out, and what are the drinks that people are sipping on as you're sitting down to play your first game?
That's I have two very different answers there. The food, almost irrelevant to me. Food is not something that I focus on game night. Although a nice rack of lamb sounds perfectly lovely.
Tim.
I think the food is something that you set over on the side, and if folks want something between games, there's a little bit of snacking going on, but I like to keep it focused on the game. Now, the drinks is very different.
Let me just jump before you go into your amazing drink spiel. I'm reading between the lines here. I feel like Tim has an entire 5-course menu with each food laid out with each game.
Not at all. No, not at all. No, I told you I got this idea from the last Game Night on Earth podcast, and these are the same questions he asked, and people had very different answers than I do. You guys have very different answers than I do, but it's not about a 5-course meal, so don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
Well, Chris, I'm very excited to hear about your drink service for the evening.
Well, and actually there's two things, and at the end I want to give my example that kind of pulls all these things together in an actual concrete example. But the drinks should be themed, and you guys know that I feel this way in part because I've started doing that little segment that we have from time to time on themed drinks for games, and drinks are so evocative. Even more so, and food is too, but to me, drinks are even more so. There's so much craft involved. There's so much history and mood involved in a good drink, and especially when there's a good story that goes with that drink as well. So you got to have the right drink that goes with the right game. There's got to be a theme. When I bring the drinks out to my guests, I want to have a story to tell them about that drink, how it fits in with the theme. And it could be, it could be almost anything. It could be a cocktail. It could be, what you said about Guinness, Adam. If you're playing Guinness with Innis, that's kind of perfect. Something, or a harp lager or something like that. Anything that ties in where, you're sitting there thinking, I'm drinking the right drink for this game, then I'm pretty happy.
Okay, so let's jump in, Chris, and let's hear about your first game on your ideal game night. Then you can tell us about the drink you're drinking with it.
But let me jump in first. Actually, can I go back to you didn't ask me the question about people that I want at the game night.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes. Yeah. You know what? Before we get into your first game, tell us about what people are going to be at game night.
And that was on my mind because it's very different than Adam's answer. His is a party. His is like, you're at AdamCon or whatever, Ireland Con or InnisCon, whatever you want to call that. He has 5 tables with multiple games going on. For me, I think a great game night is 3 to 4 people. I love 3-player games. We actually talked about that on last week's podcast, and we experienced, actually, the game night that we had with me, you, and Steve, God, was it last weekend? Whenever it was, very recently, I've already lost track of time. That was pretty doggone close to perfect in terms of the right people, the right place. I want to have a couple good friends there that are really into this, that I enjoy playing games with. And if there's one wild card I want to throw into it, it's somebody else who is relatively new. A new gamer, or maybe somebody who's kind of dabbled a little bit, or someone who's kind of eager to try it and see, what gaming is all about. Because there's always a little bit of a thrill when you're bringing somebody new into a fun experience. The same way that, we all love it when we have a restaurant that we love and we want to share it with our friends, or a great bar, or a great whatever, a great park to take a walk in. And you love to bring a friend along with you to enjoy something that you love and hope that they love it too. And so I think my ideal group would be maybe 3 good friends and somebody new who's kind of with us for the first time, and, make them welcome, help them enjoy learning a little bit about gaming and just have a good time, and hope that they want to come back for the next one.
All right, but you're not going to name specific names. You're not going to pick your friends that you want there.
Well, I mean, you guys, of course.
Okay, you didn't have to do that.
No, it's true though. It is true.
Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, Ant-Man.
No, it is absolutely true though. That I mean, the game group we game with, the three of us plus Steve. I haven't played with Jen. Maybe Jen gets an invitation too, but I haven't actually played a game with her yet, so I don't know. But our gaming group, I think, would be absolutely perfect. Nice. I want to bring that extra person in, but I think we're
right on. All right, so let's jump into your first game that the four of us are playing together. I'm super excited. Don't mess up.
To me, it's almost less about the game and more about the weight of the game, which is interesting because Adam had very specific choices about what he wanted to play. For me, I want to start with a medium weight game. We want to kind of get we want to get some fun going. We want to get everybody interacting. We want to kind of get our brains getting into that space where you're making interesting decisions and working with your resources, managing a few things. So I'm thinking something like Wingspan and Parks are always great favorites of mine. Very thematic, tons of fun. Red Rising is another one, I think, that even we talked about a little bit last week. That's a nice medium weight game. Anything of that weight that lets you jump in and you're not spending an hour teaching the game if the people don't already know it, and it's not going to take you 3 hours to play the game. I want to start with something like that because I think that's a nice entree to the evening.
All right. And since you didn't pick a specific game, then we can't hear your specific themed drink with that game. But what kind of music is playing on your game night?
It really depends on the game. And this is another one where I kind of differ with Adam a little bit. He said very minimal interaction with the music. The music's there for the background. I think the music's part of the mood. If I'm playing Blood Rage, I want to be playing death metal from Scandinavia. If I'm playing a game of Star Wars Rebellion, I want to have the soundtrack from Empire Strikes Back playing in the background. I want the music. I want you to feel like you're in the middle of a movie when you're playing this game. And I think it really depends on the game, but I think the music is incredibly important. I've actually got on my Spotify playlist, all right, a number of playlists for all my favorite games, and each one of them has a playlist for the favorite game of mine. And
that's awesome.
And actually, one of my most favorite ones is the Batman Gotham City Chronicles one because it's got a lot of songs from the old cheesy Batman movies.
Prince,
so the whole Prince soundtrack.
Prince, lots of Prince.
Nice.
All right, cool. So let's jump into game number 2 then. You finished off that kind of mid-weight game that you were able to just get knocked out. What's game number 2 for you?
Game number 2. After you finish that first game, everybody's warmed up, everybody's having a good time, everybody's having a little bit of fun, but people probably also want to go grab some snacks because I haven't made the snacks a centerpiece of the evening. The drinks, maybe people want to get a refill on their drinks. Maybe they want to get some of those snacks. Maybe they want to take a break for a few minutes. That's when you bust out a deck game like Star Realms, Love Letters, dare I say, Cthulhu Realms, any one of those, Hero Realms, any of those kind of deck building games where you can play a game in 15, 20 minutes. Like if let's say the three of us were playing, you and I, Tim, could play a game and Adam could sit there and watch and cheer us on and, have a drink while he's relaxing, and then we can swap up and then you play against Adam and I take my break. Basically a little bit of an opportunity to back off for a minute, rest your brain a little bit and have just a little bit of straight up, quick game fun. Because then you need to be ready for the main event of the evening, which is going to be some big heavyweight behemoth that is going to take us home for the evening.
Give me some examples. What's this heavyweight game? What, one or two that you would feel fits perfectly in this spot?
Well, it's funny because the first two that came to mind for me were Batman Gotham City Chronicles, which I already mentioned once, and I've mentioned so many times recently because I still want to play that dang game. In Star Wars Rebellion, unfortunately, those are both games that play best at 2 players, so they're probably bad examples. But Terraforming Mars is a good one. You can have a big epic game of Terraforming Mars if you play with the right rules and the right expansions. That can be an evening building kind of game. That can be huge. Another one, because it's fresh on my mind because of our gaming weekend, Outlive. another one where you can really dig in, and that's you can spend a couple hours playing that game, and you can really dig into that, and it can be an epic experience. But any of that weight of game, they're probably of the three of us, I'm probably the one least steeped in like all the different game variations out there. So there are probably a million more that if I knew more about them, I would be interested in. But it's going to be something big. This is going to be the main event of the evening. After this is the point where when we're done with this, everybody's going to be absolutely wiped out and ready to either go crash or head home or whatever. But you're going to be dead after this game.
So, Chris, anything else that you feel is important to a good game night?
I think we hit it, but I want to give an example of a perfect game night. An example, like a concrete example of, one particular game. I'm going to give you the nugget version. And that is Pan Am. The perfect game, maybe not the full game night. So you play a game of Pan Am. In the background, you have music for each decade of the game. For those who have played the game before, it's about the Pan Am airline and its development from its inception back in, I think, the 1920s or 1930s. All the way up until the 1970s, I believe, and it's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, it's a great fun game, relatively medium weight, but there's so much theme in here that you can just like choke on the theme in a good way. And so you have the music going generation by generation, decade by decade. So in the 70s part, you play 70s music. 60s part, you're playing the 60s music, and the cocktails match along with that. And I did this once with some friends, and I actually researched and found that there was you'd actually get the cocktail menu from the old Pan Am flights online with the Pan Am Clipper, Manhattans, Old Fashions, all these great, drinks that, when you're sitting there, playing in the 1950s decade of Pan Am, listening to the right music, listening to Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and sipping on a Pan Am Clipper. I mean, that's heaven to me. That is perfect.
All right, nice.
That sounds amazing.
Nice.
So Tim, I'm really interested to hear yours because I think you said you were going to go a little bit more fantastical in your version of this. So where's your game night happening?
Not too fantastical. No, I love your guys' ideas, and in fact, that I would love to sit in front of glass windows overlooking a cliff. I was thinking overlooking a beach. Like, those are great ideas. But Chris is onto something. I'm not really looking out the window when I'm playing a game. I'm at the table, I'm talking to my friends, I'm looking at the game. So who cares about that? So when I think about the perfect game night, I think about a place where there's no distractions. It's a space that feels cool to be in, but nobody else is around. I know that we're going to be isolated. I'm thinking, okay, going back to the original Batman, 1989, you're sitting in Bruce Wayne's dining room where him and Vicky Vale are sitting at other ends of the room, except it's you and your friends sitting across from each other on this big ass table in a huge dining room. And the great news is that Alfred's there too. So we don't have to worry about drinks. We don't have to worry about, getting up to get food because he's stopping around, refilling our drinks, getting us snacks when we want it. Right there in Bruce Manor in his dining room from 1989's Batman. So
you're a man of vision.
That's the perfect place to be playing board games, I think. Now, who would I play with? Now, obviously, I would love to have some of my really good close friends. And I have a bunch of friends. I have, you guys that I play with all the time today. I have some other really close friends that I've gamed with over the years that I just absolutely love playing games with. I got my friend John. Shout out to John, who listens to our podcast, who's a JPL scientist, literally a rocket scientist, who, when I play a game with him, he's analyzing the actual value and cost proposition for every single move in the game, and it's a blast. I got some great friends to play with, but that's not who's coming to this game night. This is the dream game night of all time. I can play with you guys anytime, so I got to make it special. But I agree with Chris. I wanted a small, intimate game night. I like a 3 to 4 player game. I love a 3-player game. I think most games play best at 3. But I love game nights with 4 people because you got a little bit more crosstalk going on. You got a little bit less king making. You got a little bit more just like fun happening at the table while people are taking their turns. More interaction, more interesting conversation, more jokes happening. So I'm going to have a 4-player game night. Here's the 3 people that are with me at my game night. Number 1, Barack Obama. Man, the guy is obviously competitive. He's funny. He's a trash talker. He's smart. Barack Obama is going to sit down. We're going to have a great time playing games. In my dream game night, these three guys are already gamers. I'm not teaching these guys how to play modern hobby board games for the first time. They know how to play games. They've played most of the games that we're talking about, or they know about them, and they're ready to just jump in, learn the rules, and start playing. So
now it's become unrealistic. Until now you had me. Now I'm just.
This is the fantasy.
I don't believe a thing.
All right. So number 2, listen, Barack Obama, he can be a funny guy, but I always like hanging out with people that are more interesting, more fun than I am. Kumail Nanjiani just seems like somebody that would be a blast to sit down and play games with. You guys know him. He's a stand-up comedian, but he's also done some movies. So like one of his big movies was The Big Sick, a story that he actually wrote and acted in, but it was about his real life story. But he's just hilarious. He's self-deprecating, he's funny, he's witty, he's on the ball all the time. I just would love, like every single, part of the conversation, we're having a great time. He's making us laugh.
He's also from Silicon Valley?
Maybe. I never watched that show, but I think he might be. I think you're right. Okay. Now that you mention that. And number 3 is Stephen King. Stephen King is going to bring a great story to everything that's happening. We will be playing a game, and he'll just bring the thematics into every move that's happening. He'll kind of tell a story about everything that's going on. And I love that. I love when you're stepping away from the abstraction that a board game and its rule set creates, and you're actually bringing the story out. And I think Stephen King would do a great job doing that. So that's my ideal guest for game night. In reality, I'd probably rather just play with you guys. But if I want to step outside of my comfort zone and do something really different, those are my 3 guests for my ideal game night.
I don't know, Adam, I feel so inadequate now.
I know. I feel like I want to do what you guys said. My answers are lame. Get them out.
All right. So now I've got these great guests there. They're showing up. But the problem is that on every game night, even my dream game night, somebody shows up late. Everybody's not there on time. It never happens.
Stephen King, come on. Everyone knows he's going to be late.
Flying all the way in from Maine. I mean, come on.
The best game nights of my life, and somebody's shown up late for it. Even though I was so excited, I was sitting there 2 hours early, set up, ready to go, and somebody wanders in 30 minutes late. So the first game for game night has to be a game that 3 of us can get done in 30 minutes, but still going to be a great experience. My first game for game night is going to be Res Arcana. Res Arcana is a great, fun little quick playing game. Takes about 30 minutes to play. You can play 3 players. Resource management, fun little choices to make, a little bit of interaction, a little bit of take that, but a fun way to get into the night without being just a light filler game. It's still my type of game, but something that we can get done fairly quickly. Now, while we're playing Res Arcana, the playlist is going to be Man-O-War. And who else do we have here? We've got Gloryhammer, right? So those guys are going to be, during Res Arcana, we got to get the medieval, like, epic metal going on. But inserted in between those songs, we're also going to pull out some great scores from fantasy films. Like the Lord of the Rings score is going to jump in, and then we're going to hit another, metal song, and then Song of Fire and Ice, or what's that called?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah. So Game of Thrones is going to be on there. So we're going to have these great scores, and I'm going to feel like in this fantasy world. So the music, I want it to be themed with the game that I'm playing. I'm going to have a short playlist that kind of goes along with it. The food and drinks, don't care. Just want to have good drinks. Here's the spread that Alfred's bringing out to us. First, we got an epic charcuterie tray, cheese tray, great breads, jams, figs, honey, and then just a ton of great cheeses, some great brie, some great fruit and cheese tray. I said a charcuterie tray, but there's no sausage at my dream game night. It's a vegetarian game night.
At my game night, there is a vegetarian option as well.
Vegetarian lamb chops and mashed potatoes.
Just want to make that known.
It's a salad.
I'll have the mashed potatoes. I got it. But beyond that, it's just fun, snacky foods, man. That's what I eat during game night. I want some lime Tostitos. That's like my favorite game night snack. I want some sriracha almonds. I want some chocolate covered like peanuts. Like just some great little finger foods. Just a few things I can throw on my tray. I don't want to make Alfred work too hard. He already cut up all that cheese. Otherwise, all he's got to do is keep the little bowls by the table refilled, and the table's plenty big enough to keep our snacks and our games on it. So that's what we're doing for food. As far as drinks, listen, I want everyone to be happy. We could have a beer summit. I mean, Obama's going to be there, so I'll probably be drinking my IPA. But if Stephen King wants to be sipping on his, I don't know, Bloody Mary, that seems like an appropriate Stephen King drink.
Oh.
Alfred's going to be making that for him. So drinks are open. Somebody doesn't want to drink, they can have they can have their Diet Coke, or sure, just have your sparkling water if that's what you're into. So drinks for whatever people want. Me, I'm drinking IPAs over game night.
Obama's gonna laugh at you for drinking IPAs when there's so many other better options.
No way. No, he's sophisticated. He'll be all into it. All right. So game number 2. Right now we're moving into what is basically the epic main course of the night. This is where, one, I love learning new games. So I don't want to do it with every gameplay, but I want to at least learn and play one game for the first time on game night. So the game that we're going to be playing in this game night is Voidfall. Voidfall is
it's not even out yet.
It's not out yet, I know, but I'm excited to play it. And on my epic dream game night that happens in 6 months, there's going to be a production copy. It's the first production copy off the line. We've got it at the table. We're going to be playing it. So
6 months, huh?
This is a fantasy, Adam. If he's got Barack Obama there, he can also have Voidfall.
6 months is probably a fantasy. That's pretty optimistic.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, so yeah, we're playing that's the game that I'm most excited about coming up this year. And so if I'm going to learn a new game, I want it to be that one. Designed by David Turksey, Nigel Buckle, art by Ian O'Toole, an epic 4X Euro game. It's probably going to take 3 hours to play. All of us are going to have watched Rodney Smith's video before we come in here, by the way, because all of my gaming friends will have watched the rules video and learned to play. So we don't really have to spend an hour teaching it, even though we're all going to be playing it for the first time. So we're going to be jumping right in.
A very disciplined group.
On that Voidfall note, Tim, what is your hype level for Voidfall? It seems high.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't know. They started to come out with the design diaries for it the last few days, and it seems like
That was my follow-up question, is have you been keeping up with
a little bit? It seems dense and heavy enough that it's hard for me to just read a wall of text and understand what's going on right now. So I'm not really trying to absorb all the rules at this point. It does seem like it's going to be icon heavy. It seems like it's going to be rules heavy. But David Turksey did just say, I was reading a thread today, and he said it's probably just a bit heavier than Anachrony, but on the lighter side of most of the other Mind Clash games as far as teaching, rules length and things like that. So I suspect it's going to be a little dense, but hopefully in a good way. So I'm pretty excited about it. When I think of what's coming out this year, that's pretty much the only game that I care about at this point. It's not going to come out this year. You're right. It's probably going to come out next year or the year after that. But that's what's upcoming. I'm pretty excited about it.
All right. Sorry to ruin the momentum. What's the next game on the menu?
All right. So we finished everyone's brain is hurting. We finished Voidfall. Had a great time. I won by 2 points. It was a tight, close finish, but I managed to pull it out.
Who was second?
Doesn't matter. Irrelevant. But the last game for the night is something that it's a game that we all love. We played it a bunch. We can get right in there, start working on our strategies, but it's still going to be a decent, meaty game, but something that we can all get into easily, and it's going to be Dune Imperium. And this is the one thing that I 100% agree with Adam on. This is the game that I just always want to go back to, and I think with 3 to 4 players, it's just such a super fun experience every time. So Dune Imperium is going to be the final game of my dream game night with these amazing people that I've been having a great time laughing and chatting with and joking around with and staring down and trash talking. So yeah, it's got to be Dune Imperium. I'm positive the score is going to end on a tiebreaker, but everyone's going to be within 1 point of each other. It's going to be tense, tons of epic battles happening. And in fact, why don't we just throw in the new expansion that's coming out? We'll have some new factions to play with, a few new things that none of us even tried before. So there's a little bit of a new, a little change up that we all got to kind of figure out and work around in this game. So that is my number 3 game for game night.
Any other things you're going to throw in there to up the mood or for these other games?
Oh, so I forgot to tell you. Yeah, so with Voidfall, right, it's it's an epic sci-fi game. We're playing David Bowie the whole time. It's going to be some combination of David Bowie songs. It doesn't even have to be his space theme songs. It doesn't even have to be his Ziggy Stardust era songs. It's just any David Bowie song just feels like it fits in space. So that's going to be all David Bowie. Coming into Dune Imperium, we're playing the epic Dune soundtrack from the 1982 Dune David Lynch film. I don't know, was it 82? Somewhere around there. Sometime in the early 80s.
It was somewhere
I think Toto played a big part on that soundtrack, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe I am mistaken.
Toto. Like the dog or the
band? not of Dorothy fame, yeah.
So we're just going to play the Dune soundtrack's just going to be playing in the background as we're winding up that game and just getting into the whole mood of it. But yeah, otherwise, no, same drinks and snacks. That is my epic game night.
I like it.
Now, I do have a couple things that I think are important for a game night. A couple things that if it's a perfect world, these things are going to happen. Number one, there's no pets in the house. I don't have to get up and let the dog out during this whole thing. The cat is not jumping on the table or bugging one of my guests during the whole thing. There are no other family members in the house. I love my family, but not on game night. They don't need to be there unless they're part of it. And so my kids, my family, I'm not going to hear them yelling across the other side of the house. I'm not going to, hear them like talking loudly over video phone to their friend. And they're not going to come in and interrupt this epic gaming experience. A couple other things I already mentioned. Everybody already read the rules for these games. They know how to play them. We don't have to go through a big teach because people were lazy and didn't want to watch the rules video or read the rule book beforehand. That's my ideal game night, and I can't wait. I can't wait to have that time. So, Brock, whenever you're ready, let's make it happen.
Tim's dream game night. No family, no pets. Everybody read the rules.
All right, so Adam, did you have anything to follow up on now that you've heard us chat? You said you were going to jump in after you had some spark.
If people don't want to go slugfest back to Kemet, the last option is going to be Canvas. So it's just a mellow, beautiful game to end the night on. People can get their dessert drinks, chamomile teas, or whatever they want to get. We'll have Canvas with the expansion out, makes the market a little more dynamic, a little more interesting, a little less stagnant. So after everyone scores for the points, there's going to be a vote in each category for the most beautiful painting. Just as a house rule, I'm throwing a house rule despite you guys. Everyone's going to vote for the most beautiful painting in each category, and that's going to be worth an additional 5 points to spice it up. So there's going to be 3 additional votes at the end of the game to incentivize making a beautiful picture, not just going for the points.
I like it.
Sounds good. Chris, anything else for you to wrap up?
The only thing I want to add is that I had 2 great ideas, one from Adam, one for you for the big game of the evening. So I didn't have any great examples to give before. I mean, terraforming is great, but I play that all the time. Kemet would be a epic game that would fit in well for the main course of my game night. Scythe would be another one.
Oh, there we go.
Very nice.
Those are the only 2 things I wanted to add. Both highly thematic, lots of cocktails available.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks, guys. That was fun, and I'd love to be part of any of your dream game nights. So, hopefully we can make some things very similar happen in the future. All right, before we wrap up today, I did want to call out, a big loss to the board gaming community. Our Twitter friend, Rick Lorenzen, who's kind of been with us since the beginning, since we started this podcast about a year ago. He's the first person that ever commented on one of our episodes and kind of gave us feedback and said, "Hey, you're doing a great job," and gave us a little bit of motivation to keep going. Beyond that, he has also really been a part of our community as well as a lot of other board game communities on Twitter and other social media. I know he's also been a part of a lot of conventions, but he's just always got nice things to say, positive things. He's always interacted with other people around board games, and we've had a great time chatting with him. We found out some really terrible news this week that him and his wife were both killed in a car accident. So we just wanted to take a minute and raise a glass to Rick and say farewell. We've had a great time chatting with him. I literally did reach out to him and say, "Hey, I really want to meet up with you sometime, play a game when we're at a convention together." And we talked about where that might be. I was really looking forward to the opportunity to get to know him in person. But even though I never did, I still feel like I lost a friend, and like we lost and we all lost a friend this week with Rick's passing. So just wanted to call him out. If you guys are on our Twitter feed or follow it, I'm sure you've probably interacted with him and part of many of the other great board game podcast communities out there. Rick was a mailman. He always said that that was one of the things that kept him entertained throughout the day, was listening to board game podcasts while he was out walking his route and doing his job. So I'm glad that we could make his day better. He definitely made our days better, my day better a lot of times. So goodbye, Rick, and Thanks for the time we had with you. Now, Rick and his wife left 4 children, that lost their parents this week. And there was a fundraiser. There's a GoFundMe right now to help raise some money to help support them with the parents passing. Chris, did you get that?
I did. It's if you want to look it up on GoFundMe, the organizer was Jessica Cantu and the beneficiary was Greg Lorenzen. And if you go to GoFundMe and look that up, you should be able to find it. As you can imagine, having 4 children leaving behind, not only is it absolutely heartbreaking just from a personal standpoint, but the financial hardship on them must be incredibly difficult right now. So we'd encourage anybody who has the willingness and ability to donate, please do. Rick was obviously a beloved member of his community at home, as well as the gaming community, as we've seen from our time interacting with him on Twitter, and we hope his family is doing well and able to make it through this as best they can.
My reaction to this news, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I'd never met Rick in person. I'd only interacted with him through his tweets on Twitter, and everything he put out there was positive and insightful and charming and funny, and was just a pleasure to read. And he was really someone I was looking forward to meeting, and someone that kept me motivated, not just about doing the podcast, but about life. I felt like he was a kindred spirit. So the news was crushing to me when I heard it, and my sympathies and empathies are with his family.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll definitely miss Rick, but otherwise, hope the rest of you all take care and stay safe. We'll look forward to seeing the rest of you and chat with the rest of the community in the future. Life is short. You never know when it's going to end. So make the best of it. Be kind to people.
And play good games. That's obviously what Rick wanted to do.
That's right.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. If any of you would like to interact with us on social media and hang out, keep up with us, chat with us, we're always happy to talk. You can find us on Twitter at BG_hot takes, and you can find us on Facebook at Board Game Hot Takes. Until next week, take care, everybody.
Have a good night, all.
Bye-bye.